Hmm? Ah, there you are, my friend.
What? Are you surprised to see me?
Well, it's not unlike you to disappear without warning.
Someone has to keep you from wandering off.
Hey guys, my name is Shrooms, Mushroom, Shroomathan, Mushroomy. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. This time, I wanted to take a deeper look at Talon in the aftermath of Vendetta's takeover, specifically breaking down a few of the core members and how things have changed, or how their situations got worse. With Vendetta, Talon has changed from a shadowy organization to a global power, and it's something that I think is a pretty interesting thing to discuss and talk about, and with it all, of course, comes pretty drastic changes. A lot of the core members disagreed on her views, as obviously stated in a couple of the comics and short stories, and some have even lost their privileges that they used to have under Doomfist. The few I'm going to be discussing in this video are the original Talon trio being Reaper, Sombra, and Widowmaker, and the fate of Sigma, because both groups have really lost a lot in everything going on so far. Obviously, some more than others, and I do think there is a segue line or a connecting dot that's going to be merging these two storylines together at some point. And of course, with Sigma in particular, there is a lot to talk about, because it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on with him if you haven't looked deeper into the lore or on the website. So, I'll be breaking all this down and discussing it. But to begin, let's focus on the original Talon trio, and we'll go through them one by one. Before I get too deep into that though, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have so much content coming. I'm really excited for it all, and I'm excited to see what you guys think of all the new story stuff coming soon. It really seems like we're going to be getting stuff weekly now, which is really exciting. So yeah, with all of these characters, they got new bios on the Overwatch website, and that's kind of the core of where a lot of this new lore comes from. But they have a couple interactions in-game that I'll kind of be referencing. I'll be reading the more important interactions off as we go. The first of these characters is, of course, Reaper. So, we discussed him a little bit in my past videos, but mainly we talked about him in the Vengeance Comes comic video. We have a better idea of exactly what's going on with him now. On the website, it says, as soon as Vendetta assumed control of Talon, Reaper went dark. He neither cared for Vendetta's goals, nor did he believe his life would be spared, especially since he was responsible for her father's demise. This one, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's something I kind of didn't talk about in my last video, everything with her dad, because I almost felt like it was too obvious to even really mention. And for me, I feel like Vendetta would see past that almost and kind of respect him for his power, since a lot of Vendetta's story seems to be just wanting to get what was taken from her. And I guess now saying it out loud, you could probably see that as her wanting to get revenge for what happened to her dad. This is a part of her character I wasn't sure if they were going to go fully down the road of, especially because of how Reaper is in the current game and how beloved he is. I was really wondering if they were going to do this with the two, but it seems like they are. There's a really great interaction between Sombra and Reaper. I'll try to put up on screen now.
We need to be careful. If Vendetta finds us, we're dead.
Who's we? You're the one who killed her old man.
If I go down, I'm taking you with me.
These two, and especially Reaper for this part, have a lot that is going to be happening to them. It seems like they're going to be on the run for the most part. I wouldn't be surprised if Reaper, Sombra, and Widowmaker become a little trio, or maybe they go off on their own and do their own separate things. I'll be talking about the other two here more soon, but for Reaper in specific, I do think it's really interesting he's kind of afraid of Vendetta, or maybe not afraid, but on edge. Because with Reaper, he really doesn't show those exterior emotions very often, and if he does, you kind of have to get a better view of who he is. So maybe seeing Doomfist and seeing what happened to Doomfist in general probably just kind of scared him off. Doomfist himself is probably the strongest character in Talon, aside from Sigma, but we'll be talking about him later. I think that's probably why Reaper is so afraid of her now, because thanks to Max, everyone got to see what happened to Doomfist. Reaper is probably afraid of her in at least a little bit, or maybe even intimidated by her. I wouldn't go so far to say she wouldn't fight her or is fully afraid of her, but definitely intimidated to the point of trying to be aware of her, I would say. This is also a pretty interesting thing because we haven't really seen Reaper on his own for a long time, so I am curious to see what he does on his own. He's been in Talon for like forever in terms of like the narrative and the lore that we've discussed, so it is something I'm going to be keeping an eye on to see if they expand on in the future, or if Reaper's going to kind of sit to the side for a little bit as we focus on the other characters. Because I do think Widowmaker, Sombra, and Sigma all have a little bit more going on for what they could do in the narrative. So the next character, speaking of, that I'm going to be talking about is Widowmaker. Like I said, she has a little bit more at stake in Talon than most. If you don't know, it was revealed in the short story Vested Interest that she relies on Maximilian and Talon as a whole to supply her with a drug medication she needs to stay on top of her senses, and to help her forget and erase her past. Here's what her website bio says. When Vendetta took control over Talon, Widowmaker seized her chance to break free of Moira's grip. Since then, she has slipped into the night, an unseen and unbound free agent. Though she still craves the precision of assassination, she acts only on her own deadly terms. This one, I think, is pretty interesting for a lot of reasons. There's been a couple really neat interactions in game that talk about like Sombra and Widowmaker, and we're finally getting to see more of Widowmaker's character on her own. I think Widowmaker is something that they can do a lot with. She hasn't really gotten the chance to do stuff on her own in a long time, as even her bio states she's kind of been under Moira, or at least the beck and call of Talon. And of course, Maximilian. So, Maximilian and Widowmaker have a really weird dynamic where it seems like the two were relatively close, at least in terms of like being business partners. Max seemed to hire her for pretty much everything, and in turn, Widowmaker seemed to just kind of accept every job that was given to her from him. We even see this with her mythic weapon, which isn't exactly canon, but kind of shows the connection between the two in a way. So there is a lot there. I do think it's interesting that Moira had such a grip over her that she really didn't have a chance to escape beyond this. This is something I don't think they've really explained or talked about too much, especially from the vibe I get in game, where they're kind of treated more as colleagues, but in this it kind of seems more like she was a prisoner. So maybe we could see her kind of opening up about her past, maybe because she's off of her medication and drugs, that she'll be able to explore those memories a bit more and start to regain who she once was. I don't know if they'll go the whole route of giving her redemption or anything, but I do think this will be a great time to explore her character while Doomfist is out of commission and Vendetta's in power. Also, I do think it's pretty neat and just interesting to see her become like a full-on assassin slash like for-hire mercenary again. Her and Reaper are kind of in the same boat in that regard, so maybe they do team up here. Maybe they stick together because they've always worked pretty well together, so I could see that happening. The last of the main group, and this is probably going to be the one I discuss the most, is, of course, Sombra. Sombra is part of a lot of moving parts in the Overwatch universe, and I'll be talking about each one after we go through her bio here in a moment. Her bio states, Sombra had no desire to serve a Talon controlled by Vendetta. Choosing to leave on her own terms, however, with Sigma still held prisoner by Talon, she continues to operate from the shadows, keeping a careful eye on every situation about to unfold. So, with Sombra, there is a lot we can discuss, and there's a lot of avenues her character can go in. Sombra herself could just go down the rabbit hole of focusing on the conspiracy. And as I say in pretty much every video now, if you don't know what the conspiracy is, it's the eye symbol that you've probably seen with Emery and in a couple other places throughout the game. It's the idea of some kind of group organization in the shadows kind of orchestrating everything, and Sombra's been after them for a long time. She's even working with Soldier 76, aka Jack Morrison, in the Lucky Man short story, where we find out that the two of them have been trying to kind of working together to discover what's going on with the conspiracy. So we could see her just kind of focus on that if she really wanted to. Maybe this is how we get the conspiracy ball finally rolling, is Sombra being removed from Talon so she focuses all of her energy on another topic, or alternatively, we could see her focus on Sigma. So I'm going to be talking about Sigma, of course, in a little bit here as well, but Sigma and Sombra's relationship has been a pretty fun one to watch explore and evolve over time. The two in-game have fun little non-canonical interactions where she kind of treats him like a person, which no one really else in Talon has done. She kind of cares for him in a way that none of the other members do. She kind of tries to look out for him as well based on a couple interactions, and even in the comics, like the Christmas comic we got last year, we can see the two of them like gifting each other gifts, and she has a little smile. So it does seem like those two are pretty close, and with that in mind, of course, it does make a lot of sense she's going to be keeping an eye on Talon to try to find a way to save him, because there is a lot going on with Sigma. With all those three discussed, I'll do kind of like a little summary on them real quick. Those three are moving in a pretty interesting direction. I don't think there's a concrete answer for where their stories are going to go. There's a lot of ways they could go, obviously. They could stick together, they could all branch into different things. Maybe this is how we get Reaper and Soldier meeting again, finally. It's been a little bit in canon since they actually confronted each other, or even really got to meet again, so maybe we could see Reaper going in that direction with Sombra and the conspiracy. Or maybe we see Widowmaker kind of being off on her own for a little bit, and we don't hear about the other two. Or, of course, I think they'll probably just keep these three together as an ongoing background thread. These characters are really beloved by a lot of people in the community, and just everyone in general. They're the original Talon trio, so people have a really big soft spot for them. So they're probably going to be doing a lot of stuff with them down the road. Now that we've talked about the Talon trio, I think it's time we talk about the Sigma in the room. Yeah, so Sigma's not doing too well in Talon. If you remember in my other videos, I kind of talked about how I was really wondering what was up with Sigma, because he was left out of a lot of things like the animated short, and I even mentioned in my last video on Vengeance Comes, or I guess a couple videos now with Vengeance Comes, that this whole thing with Sigma was really weird. I was assuming they were going to do something with him, because he's kind of a really important member of Talon to just kind of not do anything with, and we got a pretty good idea of what exactly is going on with the guy now. From his bio on the website, we get this. With Talon under Vendetta's rule, Sigma has been thrown into containment. Per Vendetta, he is no human, but a volatile weapon, and should be treated as such. Until she has a need of such tool, Sigma remains confined, holding out hope that one day someone might free him from his torment. I did kind of call this in my prior video. I said Vendetta would probably kind of treat him as a new weapon to her. And with that in mind, it does make a lot of sense that she's treating him, as I said, a tool. And of course, Sigma himself is not enjoying this. There's a lot of interactions in game, and I'll try to put a couple up on screen right now, probably go through a few, that kind of show his torment or anger towards the other members of Talon. Here's also one where it's an interaction between Sombra and Sigma.
Are you okay, viejito? You don't look too good.
I am afraid conditions have worsened in your absence, my friend.
Hang in there, okay? I promise I'll get you away from her.
So, all of this combined does paint a picture of a prisoner, obviously. So this whole storyline is probably going to be something they expand on in the future, and just generally, I'm probably going to be keeping an eye on Sigma. His whole story and everything going on really is painting him kind of breaking free. I just think he needs a little nudge or a push, and he's really had it and is up to his final kind of straws with a lot of talent, it seems. Sigma also has this really interesting thing where he is probably the strongest member of Talon aside from Doomfist, where we even don't really know was up with Doom right now. So aside from Doomfist, he is the strongest. So he could probably break free on his own. We could probably see like Sigma going down a rabbit hole of kind of breaking free and forcing himself out, kind of defeating Talon as he goes. I think that is one way to go about it, but I do think Vendetta is smarter than that. I do think she's underestimating him a little bit, but we're probably going to be seeing a story with Sombra trying to rescue and free him. Maybe we see like a kind of pseudo-Talon faction form where a lot of members go to another organization. There is a theory that the next storyline next year will either be on the Conspiracy or on Null Sector, but I'll be making a video on those separately later, because I do think there's a lot to talk about with those two in particular. Maybe we could see them teaming up with Null Sector to fight Vendetta, or teaming up with the Conspiracy in some way. There is a lot of question marks around that one, and like I said, we'll be talking about that in another video, because this one is about Talon. Sigma's not doing the best based on everything that we just kind of talked about there, and of course, the Talon trio as well are kind of out of Talon. They're on the run. So I'm really wondering what they're going to be doing with these guys in the upcoming story this year. They're definitely not done, and there's probably going to be a lot of moving parts for all of them, but of course, I just wanted to make this video as a little roundup of the lore and kind of a heads up on what exactly happened with all these members, and kind of giving everybody a little notice on the state of these heroes. If you like this kind of stuff, let me know, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. This was a really fun one to make. It was a bit more informative than my usual speculation or theories, but I'm excited for the next one, where we're going to be talking about probably a little feline cat that got added into the game, because there are some interesting things to talk about with that hero. That's all from me in this one, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!